Hi, it's time for a reintroduction update video. Allow me to reintroduce myself. This is Heyo! No, I kept saying Heyo because my daughter was watching a video tonight with some cartoon with stories about Jesus, and I was listening to it in the background, and it was like, this is Jesus, and he goes, Heyo! Gotta love it. And this is the update, the story that I don't want to say story, I'm telling. The update on events. Do you like my Isis earrings? I have been wanting to tell this version, parts of this version for such a long time, and was in silence in these like fear-based, false evidence appearing real, fear-based existences because of the psychological reprogramming that I have been doing and the traumas I've experienced that have lived in my tissue in the process of working those things out and getting my nervous system back to a point where I actually felt safe speaking of these things. And I am Liz. I am a shaman. I'm an oracle, mystic, whatever, witch, whatever floats your boat. Shaman is the very specific designation that came through to me in plant medicine journeys and messages from source. And I respect that. And I resonate with that heavily in the nature, animal guides that I have, the totems that I receive, the spirit guides I work with, the messages from the different plant medicines that I have sat with. And sharing my story is something that my ancestors have asked me to do as well. And honestly, like when something is in your life contract, when source is trying to give you guidance and direction and you're not listening, life gets really uncomfortable until you start to listen. So I'm sitting down tonight on International Women's Day after a really empowering afternoon to share an update. And today I went to an ecstatic dance event, which is absolutely just soul fulfilling for me in healing and joy and moving energy through my body and moving freely. It was a really beautiful group of people, and it's one of those moments where you're kind of saying, where I kind of said, give me a sign of where my talents are going to be best used and what you want me to focus on. And I walked into an ecstatic dance event, which is predominantly for those who are working through trauma. I don't want to limit it to that because there's a lot of different types of people that go, but it's incredibly, it's just trauma healing. It's a journey. And I was in a church. I have extensive religious trauma, and I've been this like undercover starseed extraterrestrial agent going behind the scenes in the life of the boys club and religious organizations and the patriarchy, like collecting evidence on how it's just tearing apart, how it's torn apart humanity and turned everyone into these just fear-based, control-based individuals and taken us so far away from our natural existence. So yeah, the event was in a church, and it was in a room with all of this Alcoholics Anonymous material all over the place. And 444 on the timer. Thank you, Michael, Archangel Michael. I was raised by an alcoholic in a dysfunctional environment where I was in survival mode, And I ended up repeating that pattern in many of my relationships throughout my life, and married an alcoholic. And through tapping into my own abilities and tapping into what's going on right now in the ascension of humanity and the shift of our consciousness, it I realize so many of us that are here for these purposes have agreed to come here and go through these incredibly intense events because it's what cracks you open and wakes you open to your gifts. So you're welcome. And the patterns that I have been able to see just across the board and in my own life and own experiences, specifically related to what is happening to 555 on the timer, to children of alcoholics, and how we grow up, how it affects our psychological processes and psychological development, and not to mention also being combined with the shame, fear, guilt-based teachings of the Catholic Church and the indoctrination in our school systems, especially Catholic school, which I went to. And I spent 12 years in a relationship with an alcoholic who, below it all, has a heart of gold. But was an alcoholic for 2 decades plus. And I stayed. I showed him I would stay for that long. And he could continue doing what he was doing. And the way that alcohol turns people into someone different, like, why do you think it's been mainstreamed for us? Because of, number one, all of the medical conditions and health issues it causes, and then puts you into the loop of needing big pharma and medical treatment, etc. But it also brings out dark sides in people that you do things you wouldn't normally do. Energies can come in. It's a portal for negative energies and negative entities. And the person that I knew that had a heart of gold on the inside did a lot of stuff that he wouldn't have otherwise done. And in that regard, it was hard for him to fathom that he would do those things. So when I would tell him the next day or the day after and be upset about the way that I was spoken to or the way I would treat it, it was typically a response of, I didn't do that. You're exaggerating. You're making it up. I didn't do that. That, ladies and gentlemen, is called gaslighting. And when you are in that environment for so long, it makes you question your own sanity. They are proving now scientifically that brain damage occurs when you are in narcissistic abusive relationships. And so we have these cycles going on through our families where we are raising children in these toxic environments, and then they don't know how to discern not being in those situations in the future. And they also are living in survival mode. So you have learned to adjust your behavior to the most dysfunctional person in the room and make them feel safe, because that means that you will be safe. And the moral of this story right now, what I'm bringing up, because I have gotten multiple signs coloring these frogs with my daughter the other day, of the frog princess on my arm, for what we're doing to our daughters, of settling for less than you deserve, kissing the frogs in the swamp, hoping that one of them will turn into your prince instead of just waiting for your Prince Charming, settling for Mr. Right now instead of Mr. Right. And I was encouraged wholeheartedly by my mother in all of these relationships to settle for less than I deserve to keep other people happy, or to keep the status quo happy. And on the other side of this picture is the trumpet with this Bible verse from Deborah in Judges about the day the Lord gives you victory. And at the same time, I had my study Bible and flipped open to a page, a bookmarked page, Judges, with a picture of Yeshua. And I have been on very much in the path of the teachings of Mary Magdalene and Yeshua and Isis. Mary Magdalene was anointed in the ways of the temple priestesses. And when I looked up Deborah and Judges, she was one of the female prophetesses. And now I'm looking at Christspiracy and the Mushroom at the Cross. And it is, we're talking not about necessarily judging everyone for their actions, but being someone who is a good judge in situations, who can give good advice, who can evaluate from a higher point. And in this human experience that I have had going through this life, going through a divorce, 11/11, in this American justice system, the experience that I had going through this, I was a diagnosed PTSD survivor. Let's talk about how when you get a diagnosis from the medical field, it's literally trying to attach a stigma to you and attach a disease to you that is then psychological, so it sticks with you. And once you think you have something, you just stay in it. And the difference here is when your brain knows what's going on and your brain has caught up, what people don't realize is the level of physical trauma that you have experienced in your life. Experiences, emotion lives in your tissue as well. And so your body actually needs time to catch up to what your brain already knows. And this is where somatic therapy and ecstatic dance and vibration therapy and sound therapy and light therapy and plant medicine all come into play. Some people can go into a plant medicine ceremony and boom, they've got one ceremony and they're done and they're good. Other people, it's going to be different depending upon what your experiences have been. And this life, past lives, the generational stuff that's passed down through you, some of the stuff you're carrying isn't even yours to carry. But I have dealt with chronic pain. I've been very sensitive to picking up other people's energies. I feel like everything of everyone around me. And I got scared for a while of getting into scripture because of my experience with organized religion and the people I was surrounded with, the brainwashing. It ended up scaring me away from getting into scripture for a while. And the experience that I had going through this shamanic initiation, which pretty much if you're going through a shamanic initiation, it's going to involve some level of like psychosis or these like events where you go off in the wilderness and people are like, what the fuck is she doing? And it's like, I'm going to live in the woods for a while. Like, I'm grounding. I don't know. This is where I'm being told to go and I'm going to do it. And then standing firmly in what you're going through versus trying to revert back to a former life that is no longer aligned with you. I experienced playing small, reverting into that former life as in people-pleasing efforts to try to keep access to my kids. And this is, again, the human experience that I've had where we go, what system are we living in? What kind of world is this? And this is not about highlighting anything fear-based. This is literally about creating awareness and making people think and making people look at the system and go, wait, what? Because I was a stay-at-home mom taking care of my own disabled mother and my 2 small children, married to an alcoholic, going through absolutely the most grief I've ever been through in my life. I had just lost my father, who I had a tumultuous relationship with. I was suffering from depression, anxiety, suicidal ideation, And I knew I was in a loveless, toxic relationship, and I'd been in therapy for it, realizing it. And as a stay-at-home mom with 2 little kids and a lady in a wheelchair, I was like, how the hell am I going to get out of here? And I fell completely into functional alcoholism myself for an extended period of time, and started going down this rabbit hole. And then all of a sudden it was like third eye blown open, and everything made sense. And I was like, I want a divorce, and started moving from there in very spirit-led actions. And everybody again was like, what the hell is she doing? What's happening? And in this process, dealing with the court system, dealing with attorneys, and realizing that the entire system is not it is not set up to support women and children whatsoever. And I went into this scenario with attorneys throwing me under the bus for PTSD. And then when my therapist came through with the PTSD diagnosis, then it was like, okay, well, we're going to attack her spirituality and make her seem crazy. And my patterns of behavior over the years, I had been consistently taking care of everyone, and then all of a sudden starting to do all this stuff. My ex's patterns were driving under the influence, being a raging alcoholic, and not we were basically roommates. We had absolutely no emotional connection. We had no romantic connection. There was no effort in our relationship. And again, this is not me pointing fingers at him, so to speak. This is like a picture of what's happening in society. We were in an unhappy relationship that we weren't working on, but toxic patriarchy it's not acceptable for the man to show emotion. It's not acceptable for the man to want to go to therapy. It's not there's a stigma associated with all of it. And going into the court system with me gung-ho into, I'm a shaman, we're working on the ascension of humanity right now, and the ascension of human consciousness. This is the second coming of Christ, but it's not Jesus himself coming back. It's literally Christ consciousness coming to fruition in each of us, because the kingdom of heaven is within, and Jesus was here teaching us a way of life, and that's why they killed him. And the Magdalene bloodlines are like, and everybody's like, what? I'm sorry, what are you talking about? But I was in it. And long story short, I moved out of the house into an Airbnb. I was devoted to this path, and when I got into plant medicine, I found out now, as I've been through the process, why I went through all of this, because I'm here to shed awareness on integration as well, and how the responsibility of practitioners that are taking trauma survivors and putting them through plant medicine ceremonies and then just sending you back to your normal life. That's not integration. That doesn't help. You can't expect the change to stick. And not only that, who knows what kind of energy, I ended up working with somebody that had negative energy on them, and it came back with me in an ayahuasca ceremony. I had trickster entities that were jacking with me, and through integration and stepping into it, I didn't know what was going on. And so this last year has been very enlightening in going through all of this stuff and getting to a point where, again, 6 months or so ago, my whole body went back into survival mode, and I had this rapid ascension where I completely detoxed my body. I was completely immersed in my gifts and where I was going with this. And then when you go back into survival mode again, and you're in fight or flight all the time, and your nervous system is on high alert, it's static. And then you start making decisions that are not in alignment, because you're making them out of survival rather than what your actual guidance is. And it has been, it was wild. It was wild. And I'm grateful for all of the stuff that I learned. But my evaluation of going through this in the court system is looking at the fact that paperwork and finances and who can afford what is so much more important than actually anybody evaluating the entire situation and looking at it from a human perspective and an empathetic perspective. And in this scenario, I raised awareness to lawyers and to a child psychologist about the fact that I was like about to be homeless and felt unsafe living in an environment with my ex-husband who just assumed we were gonna like live under the same roof honky-dory until the divorce was final. And it's like, no, I don't feel safe around you. Like, I've been gaslit for 12 years and everybody around us wants to avert their eyes because they're in some sort of cycle as well that they can't admit what's going on. And when you're raised in a dysfunctional, toxic family full of alcoholism and addiction and masking and everybody sweeping everything under the rug, like, they can't look at it either. So when you're unmasking everything and you see through everybody and you're letting it all out and you're like making everybody aware of the bullshit that's been going on, nobody likes that. Nobody wants to hear it. And so when I brought up all these concerns of we're talking about who's going to take care of my children and you're worried about my PTSD and my spiritual choices, I'm worried about somebody who has historically driven under the influence, who has been incredibly intoxicated at home alone with my children to the point where he had to be hospitalized the next morning for being so depleted, for his systems being so depleted. And there were issues of sexual assault raised where there were things done to me under the influence that I know that he never would have done had he been sober. But that is part of the issue, that these things were raised and I was told those are domestic issues for you to worry about. And it's like, well, we're talking about who's taking care of my kids here. And their concern was who can afford the children. He's got stable income. He's got stable housing. Nowhere in here was anybody like, let's get you in touch as a PTSD survivor. You are covered under the Americans with Disabilities Act. And these are the things available to you. No one was like, hey, there's resources through the county where you can get assistance for housing, where you can get assistance for job placement. Like, no one was guiding me in this direction. My own attorney wasn't like, hey, they're coming at you for spiritual stuff, like maybe we should be looking at constitutional rights here, like this is religious freedom here and your choice in religion shouldn't be used against you to call you an unfit mother. There were all kinds of lies thrown about me that no one even asked before judges were signing off on things. And this whole time I'm going through, as well as this spiritual initiation, the shamanic initiation, going through deprogramming from 40 years of narcissistic abuse, starting at the hands of my own parents. And we brought up in court, look, I've been in therapy, I'm going through treatment with PTSD for sexual assault trauma, for rape trauma, for emotional abuse throughout my entire life. And no one in there said, well, should we look at where the PTSD came from? Like, she's obviously been in this relationship. It didn't just happen overnight. She's been in this relationship for 12 years. They've been married for 6 years. She's been taking care of 2 children and her own mother and her husband, not taking care of yourself. This is the whole basis of it all. Standing up for what you deserve, no less than what you deserve, because you love yourself that much and you know what you deserve. And then being able to take care of yourself and have a partner that recognizes when you're not taking care of yourself. Like, when someone you love stops doing all the things that make them happy, gains a bunch of weight, and is drinking 2 bottles of wine a day, like, if you have a partner that is like tuned in, they're going to be like, hey, what's going on? Something's off here. Like, let's work on it together. And instead it was an approach of, when are you going to get it together and step up as a mom again? Like, those are all red flags and indicators that you're not with somebody who is emotionally mature enough to deal with, to handle a relationship with you and whatever it is you're going through. And again, this is not me pointing individual fingers at my ex as like, you did this, you did that. It is also, I take responsibility for staying in a relationship that I knew wasn't emotionally mature enough for me at the time. And then when you go into this trauma treatment, you kind of like revert to the age where the trauma started. So I was like, I not started, but like where kind of like a peak moment. So I went through like the childhood trauma, the early adolescent trauma, the teenage trauma, the early adult stuff. Like it was like phases of going through these stages of my life. And then when I had like a re-traumatization event, it was like, and it locked my nervous system up, the womb healing that I had to do from all of this. And this is generational. This is my ancestors coming through with years and years and years of assault trauma in our bodies, of psychological manipulation, of being in these relationships that they couldn't get out of. And you can see on both sides where it goes back in the generational line. And so much of it comes back to our grandfathers for me it was grandfathers being in wars where they get PTSD, they get injuries, they come back, they're in chronic pain, and no one's treating it properly. And so it trickles down. Everybody in the family learns to keep the dysfunctional person happy, and then it trickles down into our children. It trickles down into how they raise their children. And my grandparents, God love both of all four of them, but two of them in particular on my mom's side related to the alcoholism have been very prevalent guides for me. My grandfather struggled with alcoholism, and my grandmother didn't know how to take care of herself when he died. And it's kind of what I've been learning too, but we see in this as well that we've lost the village of support. We were put in a situation where women were competing against each other instead of supporting one another, where men are in a state of power and control over women instead of treating them as an equal partner and operating as a team. And these societal roles have been put in place and put on us to keep us divided, to keep us from operating in unity. And, organized religion, in another sense, what Yeshua was here teaching us was not to control women. He protected women and children. Mary Magdalene was his divine partner. They worked together, and that's where the divine feminine's been completely removed from history in these respects because of how powerful we are, and they don't want us to know how powerful we are. And this is where so many of us are healing the witch wounds, because we've been killed in past lives for being our authentic selves, for letting our magic out, for using our voices. And our voices matter, especially when we come together and share our stories. And I feel like the more of us that share our stories, the more impactful it's going to be, not only in allowing you to be seen and heard, it clears things for the bloodline. Like when we keep it all inside, when we don't let it out, when we sweep it under the rug, it manifests into more. It manifests into disease. It manifests into illness. It manifests into cancer. And I come from a line of women who've tried to get out of abusive relationships and didn't have the means to do so. Getting out of the abusive relationship was one for me. Two, it's about telling the truth about what happened. And the optics were great from the outside, not great from the inside. And you could look at both of us and see it. I mean, I was over 200 pounds at the time. I mean, you can look outwardly at someone as within, so without. Addiction doesn't come from nowhere. Obesity doesn't come from nowhere. We don't get addicted to this stuff for no reason. And when you see somebody that does not look healthy on the outside, it's because there's more to it. There's more going on. And this is where like the hypocrisy of organized religion comes in. We sit here and we look at these hypocrites telling everybody your body is your temple and take care of it. And it's meant to be respected and treated well, and then we fill it with junk food, we fill it with processed stuff, we fill it with big pharmaceuticals instead of natural healing plant medicine. And we deter people from exercising. We stick everybody in office buildings in front of computers or on phones all day long, and keep people out of nature when that's our real medicine. And this goes back into the court systems, where I was actually ridiculed and mocked and had it used against me that I chose holistic methods of healing versus big pharma medication. And it's so ridiculous. And in a state where things like cannabis use are legal for medical and adult use purposes, not only did I have prescription, but it was also legal in my state for adult use. And it was used against me in court for using medicinal marijuana, for cooking with it, for talking about it on social media. And it's like I had a prescription for it for chronic pain and anxiety, and it's legal in the state. So how can we make it legal? How can we give you a prescription for it and then turn around and say she is an unfit mother because she's using medicinal cannabis? I mean, through logic, every parent that was using medicinal cannabis should then be called unfit and have their children taken away. Right? How does that make sense? These are the things that when you take a bird's eye view of our system and how it's working, and you go, this doesn't work. This doesn't work. And also, you're more concerned about the paperwork than human beings. And everyone is so robotic. This is just the way it is. This is just the way it is. When do people stop and go, I know that's the way it's been for a while, but this doesn't make sense. And maybe we should make sure that our survivors of narcissistic abuse, our survivors in these situations, actually have protective measures in order, actually have safety measures in order to make sure they and their children are okay. I have met so many women that have lost custody of their children to narcissists in the last year. I have met so many women that are still in these situations where they are being controlled by an ex because the kids are still involved. And what does that show your children? What do you think your children learn about how to treat people through that? And I've watched these children also then be just like these little empathetic balls of emotion for their parents and worried about their mothers in particular. Mom, how are you feeling? And trying to comfort their mothers. And while it is incredibly sweet for your child to be able to tell when you're upset and come give you a hug, but for them to constantly be in a state of having to be emotionally aware of what's going on with you and trying to nurture you when you are the one who is supposed to be nurturing them, it's an unhealthy dynamic. And it's where we've been so flipped around in this society that our children should not have to be tiptoeing around our emotions or trying to comfort us when they can tell something is wrong. They should be allowed to be children because they're magic, and we should be able to be in existence in an environment that is light enough for us to not have to function that way. That's a tea, baby. Right? I'm drinking some mint chamomile right now. Mint for gut health, chamomile for calm. And my little girls keep telling me, spill the tea, mommy, spill the tea, mommy. And so much of it is also related to our sacred sexuality. Of, again, how these systems don't care about this kind of reporting. And it's looked at, well, you're with an intimate partner, you're married, and I'm sorry. No, I'm not sorry. Why would I say that? I am not sorry. Regardless of what your relationship is to a person that you are having an intimate encounter with, and regardless of whether it started as consensual or not, when someone holds you down, keeps you from moving, and you are saying, no, stop, I don't want to be here like this, and they hold you down and finish whatever it is they are doing to you, that's not consent. That's assault. Whether it's your husband, whether it's your wife, whether it is your boyfriend, whether it is your girlfriend, whether it is a stranger, whether it is what you do in your time. But that's assault. And that's criminal. And it shouldn't be looked at as that's a domestic issue for the two of you to figure out. And in my experience, my partner was under the influence, was intoxicated at the time. And, you know, when people like to pull the, I didn't do that, you're making that up, or I don't remember that. When something like that happens to someone, or a woman, or me in particular, I thought about it every day for a long time, especially because my daughter was conceived during that act. And I carried that with me. And I was actually shown that I healed a lot of that when I was pregnant with her, because I was pregnant during COVID, and I absolutely adored being pregnant, and I took such good care of myself, as much as I thought I was doing at the time. But I was doing regular massage, I was doing hypnobirth, I was doing breathing and meditation. Like, I was eating well for the most part. Yeah, but when that happens to someone, it's something you think about every day. So someone telling you made it up, it's like, no, I didn't. And you were also intoxicated, so you don't remember. And that is what alcohol does to people. And this is where we look at unconditional love and being part of one. And, you know, I struggled a lot with sharing so much of this, because there's this message of love and light everywhere right now. And yes, the love and light is important, but Yeshua also shed light on hypocrisy, shed light on people doing things, doing harm in the name of God. And when I opened up about what was going on, that I wanted a divorce, and everyone around me knew that the alcoholism was an issue, and that things were going on that we may not have shared in detail, but that I was open to people about, I was actually told by some that the state of our relationship was beside the point, but my spirituality was of concern, and I'd lost my way from the Lord, and everybody was really worried about that. And it's like, no one is worried that I suddenly woke up and wanted a divorce, and I'm talking about all of the things that were happening in the home related to alcoholism and an unfulfilling relationship. That was the other big part of it. You know, the alcohol was related in that too, but it was a complete, like, there was no actual emotional commitment in this relationship. And it was very, I'm going to put a roof over everybody's head and be the provider, and then I want to just be taken care of from there. And your emotions are too much for me, and you have too much depth, and I don't want to have these deep conversations, and I don't want to hold your hand, and I don't want to cuddle, and I'm not going to take you on dates. And I mean, I went out this afternoon with someone who was just a friend, and when he opened the door for me, the car door for me multiple times, like walked around the car to wait for me to open it, I was like, thank you. Like, I'm not used to having a gentleman open the door for me. I was just in a relationship for 12 years then married to someone who didn't open the door for me, who even our pastor in our marital counseling sessions was talking about the things that you do for your partner, and he still didn't do them. And that, again, is like, all the signs were there for me, and I went ahead with it anyway. So that's the other message. And like, don't settle for less than you deserve. Women are queens. You deserve a man that's going to open the door for you. You deserve a man that's going to hold your hand. You deserve a man that's going to cuddle you. You deserve a man that's going to respect you for the queen that you are, because you deserve royal treatment. And then when you feel fulfilled and you're taking care of yourself as well, again, you have to be able to know that for yourself, and demand that respect and provide those things for yourself too, because then you're going to want to do the same thing for them. Like, this is where the give and take in the relationship is. And I'm not pointing all the fingers at my ex in this one, because I stayed in a relationship knowing it wasn't right for me, and then there's a lot that I did out of frustration and anger and resentment for being with somebody that didn't treat me the way that I felt I deserved to be treated. But this is what happens to children who grow up in these environments. It is the soil you grow up in. You're like a plant. Your kids are like plants. And the soil of the family is going to affect how they grow. So all of our children these days that have emotional issues, that have ADHD, that have anxiety, that have depression, like, I hate to tell you, moms and dads, you're not going to like it, but most of the time they get it from you. Your kid's not depressed for no reason. Your kid's not anxious for no reason. They feed off your energy, and it starts at birth. It starts in the womb. And if you're carrying shit in your womb from your past experiences, from generational trauma, if you've been cheated on and you've been having intimate relationships with somebody that's cheating on you, your kid's going to get that. Your kid's going to get that energy. And I'm not sitting here blaming it on you. I'm telling you, this is what's happening in our energetic fields and in our wombs. And this is what we're passing down unknowingly. So this is where we get to change it. And this is where we get to heal it. And this is where we get to say no to people. This is where, when we have been through the trauma, we talk about it so we can work it through, so we're not passing this down. And this is where we stop taking our children's magic and making them people pleasers. This is where we realize that, you know, we're not meant to be in existence of a, you should do this, you shouldn't do that, this is right, this is wrong. Like, children inherently don't do anything wrong. They're perfect just the way they are. We can teach them different things, but by telling them that they are inherently wrong or bad for doing something, the psychological programming is, yeah. So what have I been doing over the last year to work on the healing front? Well, I'll tell you, we've been anointing with oils. We have been drinking all kinds of different teas. We have been detoxing our bodies of microplastics and heavy metals and parasites, because the parasites are coming from food and surroundings, and if you don't get them under control, they're going to start making decisions for you. And I am sharing all of this and so much more, but I wanted to do an update, because I have shared in this Hunt for Healthy on my YouTube channel. I've been sharing on social media before kind of the start of this journey for me, and I was doing too much too soon, and my nervous system couldn't hold it, and I ended up in a car accident and ended up in New York staying with some lovely, gracious friends, and that was Spirit telling me to slow down for a little bit. And it's also been Spirit going, share your story, share what you've been going through, because the experience that I've had coming out of it as a treating PTSD and exiting the matrix, that's the thing, anybody that's getting out of the matrix, your psychological programming, you've got some level of trauma that you are working through and balancing out, and not losing your shit in that process is important. And I will tell you, I owe my life to plant medicine. I owe my life to cannabis. I owe my life to psilocybin treatment and increasing neuroplasticity and opening up the consciousness potential in your brain, because when scientists say, we use 5% of our brain and the other 95% is junk, nothing in there is junk. It's just been shut off and filled with poison, literal chemicals is what I mean. And I am going to pick a random verse. Let's flip to a page and see what we get. Okay. A single day in your courts is better than 1,000 anywhere else. I would rather be a gatekeeper in the house of my God than live the good life in the homes of the wicked. For the Lord God is our sun and our shield. He gives us grace and glory. The Lord will withhold no good thing from those who do what is right. O Lord of heaven's armies, what joy for those who trust in you. And I love this message. Thank you right now, because I have had such a hard time trusting. And it's because of everything I've experienced thus far, of not being able to trust those around me. And I got to the point where I thought I could trust myself, and then went back into survival mode. And it's trusting yourself is so important through all of this. And we say God because it's what's in here. I interchange that with spirit, source, creator, whatever it is you feel there as far as the energy of our creator. But remembering that we are all God here in human form, having this human experience, that every being in the universe is a piece of, is God, is the energy, is stardust, is divine, is multidimensional. And that energy, that knowledge has been suppressed in us for so long on earth, and it's changing now. And those of us who are tapped in to that knowing, we are here to help guide the creation of new earth. We are here to look at these systems and go, wait a minute, this doesn't work. We can't sit here and say we're Christian and then turn our back on people who tell the truth. We can't sit here and say we believe in following the path of Jesus, but only if you believe XYZ. That's not what Yeshua was here teaching. He wasn't teaching, well, we love everybody only if they do this. We love everybody no matter what. I forgive anyone in my life that has wronged me, perceivedly wronged me, because 9 times out of 10, they don't realize what they're doing. Forgive them, for they know not what they do. But what it comes down to is our children. It comes down to taking care of ourselves, because we can't take care of others if we are not taking care of ourselves. And it is to remember our body is our temple, and we love ourselves. You love yourself. If you love God, you love yourself. If you love yourself, you love God. If you take care of yourself, it is direct respect to the divinity and sovereignty of your temple. Your body is like the most amazing technology on the planet, and to be able to put good things into it so that good things come out of it, that's part of our responsibility, right? We are what we consume. So what are you consuming? What are you telling yourself? What are you eating? What are you watching? What are you listening to? What are you believing? It all matters. It all matters. Everything has meaning. Everything. And everything is vibration and energy. So for the people that tell you, oh, well, sometimes it's just this or something, like, it all has an energy to it. What you glean from it, what you read into it, what you pay attention to, can be up to interpretation. But the synchronicities are everywhere when you start aligning, or when you can see from the other side. And everybody has different gifts here on earth. If you're watching this still, like, you're a psychic, you have telepathic abilities, and if you tapped into them, yay. And if not, it's because I'm here to remind you that they exist and help you learn to tap into them. And some people are here to use them in different ways. I am here in a shamanic capacity to walk between worlds. And fun part about being a shaman is going into the dark and having to come back out. You can see that. And so, yeah, there's love and light, and there's respect, and there's sacred reciprocity. And it is knowing that everything, every rock, every tree, every creature has a spirit, has a name, has a purpose, has energy, and everything deserves respect. Everything. And what we do to ourselves, we do to each other. What we do to ourselves, we do to Gaia. And as much as the divine feminine is screaming right now because of what's been done to her, Gaia is screaming as well. She has been pumped with plastic. She has been pumped with oil. She has been drilled into. She has been bombed. She has had wars happen on her. She is had her waters polluted. It's like us. Our living waters are in our body. That's what Yeshua was here teaching about. Our the living waters are in our body. And when the water in our body gets polluted, we're mostly water. So the whole body's polluted. And water is sentient. It listens to you. So when you talk good things to yourself, speak good things to yourself, the water remembers that. When you're down on yourself and negative on yourself, or surrounding and filling yourself with poison and toxicity, that's what it remembers too. And the more exposed you are to that, the more you got to flush it out. We got to take out the trash. Take out the trash. And this is where, we get into what you're eating too, because you are what you eat. And if you are choosing the path of life and eating fresh fruits, vegetables, and the living things that are healthy for you, you're going to be full of life. If you're full of dead energy, dead meat, electronics, that's what you're going to carry as well. And there's intention is everything, blessing is everything as well. And neither are necessarily right or wrong, but they both carry a frequency with them. So what is the frequency that you would like to have? I think that's my cue to go to bed. So tonight on International Women's Day, I'm blowing my trumpet, right? That these systems are put in place. This is ritual human trafficking done through the church and the government to literally drain you of your energy, psychologically manipulate you into operating in a certain way in this fear, control-based existence, and lose all empathy for human life based on what others are doing, what society is doing, what is the way of earth, of paperwork being more important than the value of a life, than control being more important than two people being able to sit down and discuss what's best for their children, for letting lawyers run the show when you know they're doing things that, like, there's stuff that I got thrown under the bus for by my ex's lawyer that I know my ex wasn't driving. He wasn't supporting, not necessarily, I'm going to take back the word supporting. He wasn't taking the helm on it, but he also wasn't stopping anybody else from steamrolling me. And that's where we look at humanity and we go, okay, you may not have been driving the bus, but you were watching it roll over people and did nothing to stop it. You knew there was something wrong with what was happening, and you didn't do anything to contribute to voicing concern. And that's a lot of what I've been learning over the last year too, because I kept quiet about so many things because stuff was used against me. And now it's like, okay, no, gloves are off. It's time. So, guess who's back? Back again. Oh, I love it. With that said, I'm taking my Earth Mama self to bed for a good night's rest. I'm going to post this first. And then I'm going to get some sleep so I can get up and walk barefoot in the ground and get back into a good routine and ritual, because that's what I lost in survival mode, is that routine and developing your ritual and ceremony every day in everything that you're doing. And not that everything has to be completely serious. Your ceremony might be 10 seconds of breathing for a meditation, and that is your ceremony. But having that routine and getting your body used to those things that help it stay regulated and get back into sync with Mother Nature and get back into sync with one another, that's what we're here for, baby. I thought I was going to get out of this whole political court-based existence, this whole situation, but apparently not. Apparently not. Apparently that's what I'm here for. So let's talk about it, huh? This is 411. It's the information. Let's spill the tea. We're going to spill the tea on the family court system that it's set up for the people who can afford the courts, and the judges and the lawyers patting each other's pockets and making friends 5555 on the timer when I said that, and not giving a hoot about what's happening to our children and the psychological development and experiences they're having from watching these trauma-based interactions being perpetuated. So, Shaman Liz reporting for duty. You can see through both worlds. Yippee! It is a blessing and not a curse. It is a blessing and not a curse. It is a blessing and not a curse. Anybody else feeling all these big energies? It's a blessing, not a curse. Thank you for joining me for this extended episode of Tea Time. I look forward to sharing this. Love you all. Peace, love, light, boundaries, and truth, right? This is about truth, justice, and the American way. And these systems that are in place they just shouldn't be allowed to get away with what they're getting away with anymore. And well, it's not about fighting and toppling the entire system as one person. It is about creating awareness so that other people can choose to speak up or make more informed decisions. So, yeah. I want everybody to share their stories, because your story matters. Okay? Love you. DM me. I'm going to include my contact information as well. Send me a message, send me an email. Call me. This is about being here for the people who don't have the support systems, because I didn't, who are dealing with anxiety and depression and substance abuse issues and suicidal ideation, because all of those things are a byproduct of something else that's going on with you, and you're not broken. You just got to get to the root of what is causing it so that you can clean up the root issue and move on from there. Okay? All right. I love you. And I want to hear your story. If you've got a story to tell me what you're working on. If it's craft projects that you're doing for trauma treatment, if it is starting a new business, it is you got something that you need to get off your chest, you got relationship issues, need some advice. I've been through it all. This is actually part of my spiritual gift, is to be able to help families heal. So you having relationship problems, you call me. Okay? Love you. Good night.